So welcome back. In this episode we're going to look at the women's liberation movement, or the first part of the women's liberation movement, looking at personal choices in the family. The women's liberation movement emerged around 1968 across the Western world with the rise of women's and left groups' activism. In the UK, it happened in 1968 with the 4 Dagenham sewing machinists strike, which was a strike of a lot of sewing machinists who sewed together pieces of leather to make car seats, and they demanded a regrading of their skill level because they saw themselves as semi-skilled, whilst all the male colleagues was being labelled as skilled and therefore paid more. So this was a massive strike because it showed to the country all these different elements of what women were actually doing in the factory, but also that they were going to be militant and they were going to demand their own rights. And 2 years later, in 1970, the Ruskin College, Oxford, held the first Women's Liberation Conference. It was expected that around 60 to 100 people would attend. Over 600 attended in the end. And there are pictures of the conference halls being packed because they didn't expect so many people to attend. There was also a creche held here, and they were really aware of these people, that a lot of people were coming that had children, but also that you needed to provide for women because it wasn't as simple as just turning up on the day. The same year was also the Miss World pageant protest, where a number of women went to the Miss World competition in London and throughout the whole day protested that women were being presented as these things that you could categorise and you could decide as who was prettier, depending entirely on their personal looks. And so this was the beginning of a women's liberation movement that was really trying to campaign for women's place and women's liberation. Throughout the 1970s, there was a number of campaigns as to improve women's rights and opportunities. But it's got to be said that it was a very broad movement. It wasn't member-based. You didn't sign up and have a card. It was something that you could get involved in at different levels. So there was a lot of local campaigning, and that forms a large part of what the women's liberation movement did. They tried to get women to realise that they could be liberated. And so in this episode, we'll look at personal choice and the family, and how women's liberation movement worked alongside and against legislation sometimes to get this idea of liberation forwards. So alongside changes and restrictions of marriage and freedoms of divorce, abortion became legal during this period, and it was a really important part of getting women's liberation. In 1967, the Abortion Act made it valid in Great Britain, but not Northern Ireland, to have an abortion as long as they were on specific grounds. 2 doctors needed to sign off that the abortion could take place. It had to happen before 23 weeks and 6 days, and it had to be necessary to prevent grave permanent injury, continuance of pregnancy would involve risk of life, or substantial risk to the child born as seriously handicapped. So there was a very restricted way that you could access abortion. The women's liberation movement realised that this was really significant for women because it allowed them to decide whether they wanted to have the child, especially if there were problems going to be with the pregnancy or they couldn't afford necessarily to have the child. They also realised that it was very difficult to access these services. Finally, it was passed in Parliament in 1967, but that didn't mean that loads of centres then sprung up. And it didn't mean that every doctor would then be willing to sign off and say, yes, this woman could have an abortion. And so they campaigned continuously to grow awareness of what women could access and what they should be able to access. In 1975, the National Abortion Campaign was formed, which was used to defend the Act against several different amendment bills that were put through Parliament to restrict access to abortion even further, despite the fact that only 8 years before that, the Abortion Act had been put through. It worked as a legal lobby group as well as a social awareness and support group. They went to Parliament and lobbied a number of MPs, but they also went to local health centres and local women's groups to try and encourage them to take access, or at least understand that there is access to abortion. This became a key part of the women's liberation movement's campaign for women's right to choose and decisions on family sizes that would then restrict, or not necessarily always restrict, but give access to women who needed these abortions. So this, along with contraception, mentioned in the first episode, again put the onus on family and childbearing responsibilities to women, but it did mean that they could, for themselves, access this, and they didn't need male or their husband's approval to do this. Like I said earlier as well, there were changes to divorce and marriage. The 1969 Divorce Reform Act enabled the first part of no-fault divorces. Previously, there had to have been considerable reason, such as cruelty, rape, incest or desertion, for women to, or for anyone to be able to get a divorce, and it had to go through Parliament. In 1969, though, there was the first part of removing blame from the equation of having to have a divorce. Because of this, a number of divorces went through a lot quicker than they had previously, and although they were still expensive, they were more accessible for women and for men if they needed to leave the marriage. Because of so many of them going through, in 1973 the Matrimonial Causes Act was passed, which pushed through it got rid of a lot of these loopholes and pushed through a lot more divorces quicker. It modernised and simplified divorce law, making it more equitable, so there was no longer the presumption and the understanding that it had to be a male to put through divorce. And it also formed the basis of current divorce law in that marriage could be irretrievably broken down, and that would be a reason for divorce initially after 3 years, which would then change to 1 year of marriage. These legal changes changed the focus of the women's liberation movement considerably because it allowed a personal freedom that could change the law. There could be a choice in and out of marriage, and women and men could decide what element they wanted, what part of that they wanted to live in. It also changed the idea of a sanctity of marriage, and the notion of till death do us part was no longer something that had to be taken seriously or had to be taken as the only way out of marriage. This was challenged by a number of religious groups because this idea of a marriage being something that could be continued and had to be continued under the eyes of God no longer had to be done in the eyes of the law. Nevertheless, marriage rates continued to rise and they peaked in 1972, but by 1979 they were as low as they had been in 1943 in the middle of World War II, and from which they would never recover. And so marriage rates were continuing to go down from 1972, and whether you had to stay in a marriage was also now not legally bound. The women's liberation movement campaigned on both of these areas of personal freedoms in order to protect legislative gains, especially from the late 1960s. They wanted to show access and awareness and access to these rights that remained difficult for many women to access, but also that these legislative gains were not necessarily going to stay unless they demanded them. Both divorce and abortion rights established in the very late 60s and early 70s allowed women to have increased opportunities for personal freedom, but they had to be maintained through these lobby groups and through the women's liberation movement, making it more accessible and more aware that these could happen and these were available under the law. It also changed the shape and the nature of the family. Women could decide if they didn't want to have children or if it would be detrimental to them, and neither the male or female counterparts of a marriage had to remain in a nuclear family by law, something that challenged this idea of what a nuclear family had to be, as it's now something that could be a choice.